The Vorthak Armada arrived 3 days later. 10,000 ships, enough firepower to crack Earth like an egg. Commander Zektar tried to stop them, sending message after message to the fleet admiral. "Turn back," he broadcast. "You don't understand. What you're about to face, these aren't humans, they're the architects, they're awakening." Admiral Corvin of the Vorthak Empire had never retreated from anything in his life. He commanded the largest fleet in the galaxy. His reply was short and harsh. "Stand aside, coward, or be destroyed with the primitives." On Earth, 8 billion humans felt the Armada approaching. They were all enhanced now. The awakening had spread to every person on the planet in waves, each one remembering who they truly were. Children, adults, elderly, all connected in a web of consciousness that spanned the globe. Lucy Brown stood in Central Park with her parents. She was different now. Not just in power, but in understanding. She could feel every atom in the solar system, every force, every particle. She could unmake the sun if she wanted. The knowledge should have terrified her, instead it made her sad. "We were so lonely," she said to her parents. "When we were gods, we were so lonely. We could create anything except equals. We could do everything except connect with others. That's why we chose this." President Murphy was in the Situation Room, but he didn't need to be. He could feel every human on Earth, hear their thoughts, share their memories. The decision they had to make wasn't his alone. It belonged to all of humanity. Dr. Lisa Johnson stood at her observatory, but she didn't need telescopes anymore. She could see across dimensions, through time itself. She watched a million possible futures branching out from this moment. Some humanity reclaimed their position as gods and ruled with wisdom. In others, they became the monsters they had been before. In most, they chose to forget again. "The Armada is charging weapons," General Baker announced, though everyone already knew. They could all feel it, the gathering energy of 10,000 ships preparing to fire. Paul Martinez was still on his Chicago rooftop. He could feel the fear of the Vortec crews, their confusion as their instruments showed impossible readings from Earth. 8 billion sources of energy, each one powerful enough to be a star. "We should show them," he said through the connection. "Show them what they're really attacking." Amy Chen in Tokyo agreed. "Not to hurt them, just to make them understand." The consensus formed instantly across humanity. 8 billion minds thinking as one, yet each maintaining their unique perspective. They would give the Vorthak one demonstration, one moment of truth. Sam Taylor, the teenager who could control time, reached out with his mind and stopped every clock in the Vorthak fleet. Every computer, every heartbeat, every atomic vibration froze for exactly 1 second. Just long enough for them to know it had happened. Mary Foster, the grandmother who could step between dimensions, moved every Vorthak ship 1 inch to the left through a higher dimension. Not enough to damage anything, just enough to prove she could move them, anywhere or nowhere. Dan Clark, the mechanic who spoke to machines, whispered to every computer in the Armada. He didn't hack them or control them. He asked them politely to display a single message. "We choose not to hurt you." But it was humanity together that delivered the real message. 8 billion minds reached out as one and shared a single memory with every Vorthak in the fleet. The memory of the last time the architects had gone to war. Galaxies burning, stars exploding like fireworks, entire species erased from existence with a thought, dimensions collapsing, reality itself cracking under the strain of their power, and at the end, the architect standing in the ruins of everything, alone, victorious, and filled with endless regret. Then they shared another memory. The choice to forget. The deliberate decision to lock away their power, to become mortal, to experience life as small, fragile beings who could die, who could fail, who could love and lose and try again. Admiral Corvan sat in his command chair, his whole body shaking. Every warrior in his fleet was silent. They had felt it, seen it, understood it. They weren't facing a species. They were facing gods who had chosen to pretend to be mortal. "All ships," the admiral said, his voice barely a whisper. "Full retreat, Maximum speed. Do not look back. The armada fled, not in panic but in reverence. They understood now what Commander Zektar had tried to tell them. Earth wasn't a planet to be conquered. It was a sanctuary where gods had chosen to sleep. On Earth, humanity faced their choice. They could pursue the fleeing ships, conquer the galaxy, reclaim their throne as the architects. The power was there, humming in their bones, singing in their blood. They could reshape reality itself. President Murphy addressed the world, though words weren't necessary. Everyone could feel his thoughts. We stand at the same crossroads our ancestors did. We have the power of gods. We can keep it or let it go. The choice is ours. The debate happened at the speed of thought. Some wanted to keep the power, to use it wisely this time. Others feared what they might become, but most remembered why. They had chosen to forget in the first place. It was Betty Williams, the nurse who had healed so many, who voiced what most were thinking. Power isn't the problem. It's what power does to connection. When you can do anything, nothing matters. When you can't be hurt, you can't truly love. When you can't fail, you can't truly succeed. Lucy Brown added her young voice to the discussion. I can unmake stars, but I can't make my parents proud of me the way I could when I struggled to learn something. I can reshape matter, but I can't feel the joy of building something with my own hands. We gave up everything to gain everything. The choice, when it came, was almost unanimous. Humanity would let the power fade. They would forget again. They would choose to be human. But this time, they would leave a better warning. Dr. Karen White worked with the enhanced humans to encode a message into human DNA itself. Future generations would carry it without knowing, until someone tried to wake them again. The message was simple. We sleep by choice. Wake us, and we will remember. Make us remember, and we cannot promise we will choose sleep again. Dr. Lisa Johnson, in her last moments of cosmic awareness, placed warnings throughout the galaxy. Not threats, but explanations. She wrote humanity's story in the stars themselves, in patterns that any advanced civilization would eventually see. The message was clear. Earth is a place where gods chose to become mortal. Respect that choice. Over the following weeks, the powers faded. The connection between humans weakened, became whispers, then silence. People returned to their normal lives, though they carried the memory of what they had been, what they had chosen to give up. Paul Martinez went back to his accounting job, though sometimes he still felt the echo of strength in his hands. Amy Chen returned to teaching, though occasionally she could still hear a little more than she should. Lucy Brown went back to school, a normal 12-year-old girl who sometimes dreamed of unmaking stars. The Vorthok Empire spread the word throughout the galaxy. Earth was forbidden. Not because humans were dangerous, but because they were choosing not to be. The story spread from species to species, becoming legend, becoming myth, becoming truth. Years passed. Earth continued spinning. Humans lived, loved, struggled, and died. They fought small wars and made small peace. They reached for the stars with rockets and dreams, not with godlike power. They chose the harder path, the mortal path, the human path, and the galaxy watched from a respectful distance, understanding at last the shocking truth. The reason aliens never returned from attacking Earth wasn't because humans destroyed them. It was because humans showed them mercy. It was because humans chose to remain weak when they could be strong. In the Galactic Archives, the final report on Earth was filed under the highest security classification. It read simply, Earth is home to humanity, the youngest name of the architects. They sleep by choice. They dream of being small. Do not wake them. They have chosen love over power, connection over control, mortality over godhood. They are more dangerous in their mercy than we could ever be in our strength. Commander Zektar, in his final log before retirement, wrote one last observation. We came to conquer Earth and learned the most terrifying truth in the universe. True power isn't in what you can do. It's in what you choose not to do. Humans are gods who choose to be mortal, and that choice makes them the most powerful beings in existence. Earth spun on, blue and green and beautiful, carrying 8 billion sleeping gods who dreamed they were only human. And in their dreams, they were happy. Commander Zektar stood alone in the archive chamber of his ship, reading files that hadn't been opened in a million years. The translations were broken, written in languages from civilizations that no longer existed. But the message was clear, enough to make his green blood run cold. The youngest children of the void, one file read, they who chose to forget. The gods who became mortal. Do not wake them. Do not make them remember. Another file, even older, showed a star map. Earth was marked with symbols that meant danger, forbidden, and death. The notes beside it were fragmentary, but terrifying. The architects sleep here. They ended the First War by choosing oblivion. If they remember what they are, the universe burns again. Velnor entered the chamber. Commander, you need to see this. We've captured some of their internet communications. The humans have scientists studying the genetic changes. They've discovered something. Zektar followed his second-in-command to the bridge. On the main screen was intercepted data from Earth's CDC. Dr. Karen White's research was displayed in translated text. The genetic sequences aren't human in origin, the report read. They're older than our species, older than Earth itself. Carbon, dating of the modified DNA structure, suggests they're at least 3 billion years old. These genes were inserted into early human ancestors deliberately. We're not evolving. We're remembering. Remembering what? Velnor asked. Zektar pulled up more of the ancient files. An image appeared, drawn by a civilization that died before the Vorthak learned to use fire. It showed beings of pure energy, reshaping galaxies with their thoughts, creating and destroying stars for amusement. The inscription beneath it read, simply, the architects, they who built the roads between stars. No, Velnor said. That's impossible. The architects are myths, stories to frighten children. Look at the humans, Zektar said, bringing up combat footage. Lucy Brown dissolving matter with her mind. Joe Collins controlling fundamental forces. Betty Williams manipulating life energy itself. Do they look like myths to you? On Earth, the enhanced humans were experiencing something beyond just new abilities. They were having dreams. The same dreams. Visions of vast cities floating in space. Wars that shattered dimensions. Power that could remake reality itself. And always, at the end, a choice. A terrible choice. Lucy Brown sat with her parents, tears streaming down her face. I can see it, Mom. I can see what we used to be. We were so powerful. We could create universes in our hands. But we destroyed everything we touched. We had to forget. We had to become small. Her mother, Jane, held her close. It's just dreams, honey. No, Lucy said. It's memories. Genetic memories. We're remembering why we chose to forget. Dr. Lisa Johnson had abandoned her observatory and was now working directly with the military. She could do more than detect energy now. She could see probability itself, the branching paths of possible futures spreading out like a vast tree. General Baker, she said, her eyes unfocused as she looked at futures that hadn't happened yet. The Vorthak are calling for reinforcements, I can see it. 10,000 ships, they're going to try to crack the planet rather than conquer it. When? Baker asked. 3 days, maybe less. They're scared now. They know what we are, President. Murphy was in conference with world leaders. For the first time in human history, every nation was united. The enhanced humans didn't care about borders or politics. They were connected across all divisions, a single network of consciousness that spanned the globe. How many enhanced are there now? The British Prime Minister asked. Over 5 million, and growing, Murphy replied. The abilities are spreading faster. People are awakening just from proximity to other enhanced humans. At this rate, the entire population could be affected within a week. Is that good or bad? The Russian president asked. Dr. Karen White, who was part of the conference, answered. We don't know. The memories that are surfacing, they're troubling. We were something terrible once, something so powerful that we chose to lock away our abilities and hide on this backwater planet. Why? The Chinese premier asked. Because we destroyed everything, Karen said quietly. The memories are fragmented, but the pattern is clear. We were gods, real gods. We could create and destroy at will. And we nearly ended everything. Earth isn't our home. It's our self-imposed prison. In space, Commander Zektar was preparing to evacuate. But he had one more file to review, one marked with warnings in 30 dead languages. He opened it carefully. The file contained a recording, somehow preserved across millions of years. It showed a being of pure light speaking to a gathering of primitive species. The Vortex ancestors were there, along with hundreds of others. "We are leaving," the being said. "We have become too powerful, too dangerous. We will forget what we are and become mortal. We will sleep on the third planet of a young star. Do not follow us, do not wake us. If you force us to remember, we cannot promise we will choose forgetting again." The recording ended with coordinates, Earth's coordinates. Zektar called his fleet. "All ships, prepare for emergency withdrawal. Do not engage the humans further." "Commander?" Velnor was confused. "We're retreating?" "We're not retreating," Zektar said. "We're fleeing. Send a message to the Empire. Earth is quarantined. Any ship that approaches will be destroyed by our own fleet if necessary." On Earth, the transformations were accelerating. Sam Taylor, a teenager in Denver, discovered he could slow time to almost a stop. Mary Foster, a grandmother in Detroit, learned she could step between dimensions. Dan Clark, a mechanic in Houston, found he could communicate with machines, understanding their language and controlling them with thoughts. But more than individual abilities, humanity was remembering how to work as one. Not losing individuality, but sharing consciousness. 8 billion minds beginning to connect, to synchronize, to remember. Paul Martinez stood on a Chicago rooftop looking at the sky. He could feel Amy Chen in Tokyo, Joe Collins in New York, millions of others around the world. They were all thinking the same thing. They could feel the Vorthak fleet above, sense their fear, their preparation to flee. "We could stop them," Paul said out loud, knowing every enhanced human could hear him through their connection. "We could destroy their entire fleet with a thought. We could destroy their entire empire," Lucy Brown added from New York, her young voice carrying impossible power. "I can see how. It would be easy." "No," Betty Williams said from her hospital. "That's why we forgot. That's why we chose to become human. Because it was too easy. Because we destroyed everything we touched." The memory was surfacing in all of them now. The final war. The architects had ruled everything, reshaped reality for fun, played with lesser species like toys, until they looked at what they had become and chose to end it. Not through death, but through forgetting. Through becoming small, mortal, weak. Dr. Karen White was analyzing the genetic changes when she made the final discovery. "Oh my God," she said to her team. "The genes aren't just artificial. They're counting down. They're designed to fade once the threat is gone." "You mean we'll go back to normal?" Steve Adams asked. "That's the safety mechanism," Karen said. "We remember just long enough to defend ourselves, then we forget again. Unless what? Unless we choose not to forget. The genes are designed to respond to collective will. If humanity chooses to stay awakened, we will. If we choose to sleep again, we will." The Vorthak fleet was pulling back, moving away from Earth as fast as their engines could manage. Commander Zektar sent one final message to Earth. "We understand now. We will tell the galaxy. Earth is forbidden. The architects have returned, but choose to sleep. We will not wake you again." President Murphy stood before the United Nations, addressing the world. But more than that, he was addressing the connected consciousness of enhanced humanity. "We have a choice," he said. "We can keep these powers, become what we once were, rule the galaxy as gods, or we can choose to forget again, to be human, to be mortal, to be small." The debate didn't happen in words. It happened in the shared consciousness of humanity, 8 billion minds thinking as one while maintaining their individuality. They remembered the glory of being gods. They remembered the horror of what they had done with that power. The choice, when it came, was unanimous. The countdown reached 0 at exactly noon Eastern Time. Around the world, people watched the skies as hundreds of smaller ships separated from the alien fleet and descended toward Earth. Each dropship was the size of a city block, carrying 50 Vorthak warriors. In New York City, Joe Collins was on top of a construction site when he saw them coming. He was a crane operator, 43 years old, who had worked construction his whole life. But this morning he had woken up feeling different. The metal beams he usually needed machines to move felt light as pencils in his hands. The first Vorthak ship landed in Central Park, crushing trees beneath it. The doors opened and the aliens marched out. Each warrior stood 8 feet tall, covered in armor that looked like black glass. Their weapons glowed with the same white energy that had destroyed the base in Nevada. The National Guard opened fire. Bullets bounced off the alien armor like raindrops. Tank shells exploded harmlessly against their shields. The Vorthak walked through the attack as if it wasn't happening. They raised their weapons and started firing. Buildings turned to dust. Vehicles melted. Soldiers vanished in flashes of light. Joe watched from his crane and felt something inside him snap. Not fear, rage. The tingling in his bones became a roar. He jumped from the crane expecting to die. Instead, he floated. He was flying. No, not flying. He was controlling gravity itself. Joe landed in front of a group of fleeing civilians. A Vorthak warrior was about to fire at them. Joe raised his hand and the alien suddenly weighed 10 times more. It collapsed to the ground, its armor cracking under its own weight. Joe made a pushing motion, and the alien flew backward, slamming into its ship hard enough to leave a dent. Across the city, Betty Williams was working at the hospital when the Vorthak entered. She was a nurse, had been for 20 years. But today, her hands did more than provide comfort. When she touched a wounded soldier, his injuries healed in seconds. When a Vorthak warrior grabbed her, trying to throw her aside, something else happened. Life force flowed out of the alien and into her. The warrior screamed and crumbled to dust while Betty stood there, glowing with stolen energy. The Battle of New York was being filmed by thousands of phones. Videos spread across the internet in minutes. Ordinary humans were fighting back against the aliens and winning. Not with weapons, but with abilities that shouldn't exist. Carl Jones was driving his taxi when the invasion started. He had been trying to evacuate people when he discovered his new gift. Time moved differently for him. He could run faster than bullets. To him, the Vorthak warriors moved like they were stuck in thick honey. He became a blur, pulling people from danger, stealing alien weapons, moving so fast that the warriors couldn't even see him. But the moment that changed everything involved a 12-year-old girl named Lucy Brown. Lucy was hiding with her parents in their apartment when 3 Vorthak warriors broke down the door. Her father, Greg, stood in front of his family with a baseball bat. It was brave but useless. The lead warrior raised its weapon. "No!" Lucy screamed. And something exploded inside. Her mind. She didn't create a shield or push them back. She looked at the aliens and she understood them. Not just their language or their thoughts. She understood them at the molecular level. Every atom that made up their bodies and armor was suddenly clear to her. She waved her hand and the aliens' weapons dissolved into dust. Their armor fell apart like sand. The warriors themselves began to break down, their molecular bonds coming undone. They tried to scream but turned to powder before they could make a sound. Lucy's father dropped the bat and stared at his daughter. "Lucy, how did you—" "I don't know," Lucy said, tears running down her face. "I can see everything, Daddy. The atoms, the molecules, the forces holding everything together. I can see it all, and I can change it." Someone had filmed Lucy through the window. Within 10 minutes, the video had 50 million views. A 12-year-old girl had disintegrated 3 alien warriors with a wave of her hand. Commander Zektar watched the footage from his ship, his forearms trembling with something he hadn't felt in decades. Fear. "This is impossible," he said. "Humans don't have these abilities. Our scans showed they were primitive. Commander, Velnor said, his voice shaking. We're detecting thousands of these enhanced humans now, and the number is growing exponentially. Every minute of combat seems to activate more of them. In London, the Vorthak met similar resistance. A grandmother named Ellen Wright discovered she could create force fields that no alien weapon could break. A college student named Oliver Green found he could control electricity, turning the aliens' own technology against them. In Tokyo, Amy Chen had finally learned to control her enhanced senses. She could hear the alien communications, understand their language instantly. She became a coordinator, using her abilities to warn people where the Vorthak would strike next, to guide the enhanced humans to where they were needed. In Moscow, Beijing, Cairo, and every major city, the pattern repeated. The Vorthak would land expecting easy victory. Instead, they met humans who could bend reality itself. Some could control elements, others could manipulate time or space. A few, like Lucy, could reorganize matter at the atomic level. General Baker watched the reports coming in from around the world. He could barely believe what he was seeing. Mr. President, the Vorthak ground forces are being pushed back in every city. The enhanced humans, they're winning. President Murphy stood in the Situation Room watching feeds from New York. He saw Joe Collins throw a Vorthak ship into the harbor with a gesture. He saw Betty Williams heal 50 wounded soldiers in 5 minutes. He saw Lucy Brown turn alien. Weapons into flowers. How many enhanced humans are there now? Murphy asked. Dr. Karen White was on the video link from the CDC. We're estimating over 100,000 and growing. Mr. President, something else is happening. They're connecting somehow. Enhanced humans are reporting that they can sense each other, communicate without speaking. They're becoming a network. A hive mind? General Baker asked, concerned. No, sir. They maintain individual consciousness, but they're linked. They can coordinate perfectly, share information instantly. It's like humanity is becoming something new. Commander Zektar ordered his ground forces to retreat. In 6 hours of combat, he had lost 3,000 warriors. The Vorthak Empire had never lost 3,000 warriors in its entire history of conquest. Analysis, he demanded. Velnor pulled up the data. The humans' abilities are increasing, in both power and scope. At the current rate of growth, within 24 hours, over 10 million humans will be enhanced. Their powers are also strengthening with use. The girl who dissolved our warriors, she's not unique. We've identified dozens with similar molecular manipulation abilities. This was supposed to be an easy conquest, Zektar said. How did they hide this from our scans? Commander, I've been analyzing our historical database. I found something. Earth is mentioned in the oldest archives, in files we thought were myths. The translations are incomplete, but there are warnings. Ancient warnings about this planet and its inhabitants. Zektar moved to the console with all 4 arms, pulling up the files. What he read made his black eyes widen in terror. The file spoke of Earth as a quarantine zone, a prison, a place where something powerful chose to sleep. Get me those translations, he ordered. All of them. We need to know what we're really fighting. On Earth, the enhanced humans were organizing, not through governments or military command, but through their shared connection. They could feel each other across continents, a web of consciousness that grew stronger with each new person who awakened. Paul Martinez in Chicago could sense Amy Chen in Tokyo. Joe Collins in New York could feel Tommy Brooks in London. They didn't need words. They knew where to go, what to do, how to fight. Humanity was becoming something unprecedented, something impossible, and this was just the beginning. The stars looked normal that Tuesday night. Dr. Lisa Johnson had been studying them for 15 years at the Arecibo Observatory, and she knew every constellation, every planet, every pattern in the sky. But tonight, something was wrong. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago as she stared at the computer screens, checking and rechecking the data. There were objects near Neptune, huge objects, moving toward Earth at impossible speeds. Lisa's hands shook as she picked up the red emergency phone. This was the call she had trained for but never thought she would make. This is Dr. Johnson at Arecibo. I need to speak to the director immediately. We have a Code 7 situation. 10,000 miles away, Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his warship, looking at Earth through the main display. His forearms moved smoothly across the control panels, pulling up information about the small blue planet. The Vorthak Empire had conquered 300 worlds, and this would be the easiest yet. "Look at them," Zektar said to his officers. His voice sounded like grinding metal. "They still use chemical rockets. Their weapons are primitive. They can barely reach their own moon." He made a sound that was the Vorthak version of laughter. "They don't even have a united government. They fight among themselves like children." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Velnor, studied the tactical display. "Their nuclear weapons could be a minor concern, Commander." "Nuclear weapons?" Zektar waved two of his arms dismissively. "Our shields can withstand the heart of a star. Their primitive atoms bombs are nothing. Send the message. Give them the standard terms." President Jack Murphy was eating dinner with his family when the Secret Service burst through the door. "Mr. President, we need to get you to the Situation Room immediately." 20 minutes later, Murphy sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by generals, scientists, and advisors. The room was silent as they watched the message play for the third time. The alien face on the screen had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that were completely black. But the worst part was the voice. It spoke, in perfect English, but also in Chinese, Russian, Spanish, and every other language at the same time. "People of Earth, I am Commander Zektar of the Vorthak Empire. Your planet contains resources we require. You have 72 hours to surrender. If you comply, you will be allowed to live as servants of the Empire. If you resist, we will take what we want from your ashes. To demonstrate our power, observe." The screen changed to a satellite view of Nevada. A beam of pure white light shot down from space, hitting an abandoned military base. In less than 3 seconds, the entire base was gone. In its place was a crater of melted glass 3 miles wide. General Roy Baker was the first to speak. "Mr. President, I've consulted with our top weapons experts. We have nothing that can reach their ships. They're staying beyond our missile range. Even if we could hit them, that energy beam came from their smallest vessel. We counted 50 ships, including 3 that are each the size of Manhattan." "What about our allies?" Murphy asked. "The message was received globally, sir. Every nation got it at the same time. The British, Chinese, Russians, everyone is in the same position. We're completely outmatched." Dr. Kevin Ross from NASA raised his hand. "Mr. President, I've been analyzing their technology. These beings can travel faster than light. They have energy weapons we can't even understand. It would be like medieval knights trying to fight against modern tanks." Murphy rubbed his face with both hands. He looked older than his 55 years. "So what are our options?" "We have 3 choices," General Baker said. "Surrender, fight and lose, or try to negotiate." "Get me connected to the other world leaders," Murphy said. "If we're going to face this, we face it together." While Earth's leaders talked, something strange was happening around the world. The alien weapon that had destroyed the base in Nevada had done more than create a crater. The energy wave had spread through Earth's atmosphere like ripples in a pond, invisible to human instruments but very real. Paul Martinez was working late at his accounting firm in Chicago when he felt it. It started as a tingling in his fingers like static electricity. He shook his hands, thinking he had been at the computer too long. The feeling spread up his arms, into his chest, through his whole body. He stood up, dizzy, and grabbed his desk for support. The solid oak desk crumbled under his grip like paper. Paul stared at his hands in shock. There were pieces of wood stuck to his palms. He had crushed an inch-thick desk without even trying. He touched his office chair carefully. The metal armrest bent like soft clay. In Tokyo, Amy Chen was teaching an evening English class when the feeling hit her. She had moved to Japan 5 years ago from California, and she loved her job teaching kids. But now something was wrong. Her skin felt like it was burning, but there was no heat. Her vision blurred, and she could swear she saw colors that didn't exist. "Miss Chen, are you okay?" one of her students asked in broken English. Amy tried to answer, but when she opened her mouth, she could somehow understand the conversations happening in the building next door. She could hear heartbeats from 3 floors away. Every whisper in a 5-block radius was suddenly clear as day. Around the world, similar events were happening. A construction worker in London found he could see through walls. A nurse in Mumbai discovered she could feel other people's emotions like they were her own. A farmer in Kansas watched his crops grow 3 inches in 5 minutes just by touching the soil, but most people felt nothing. The change was selective, seemingly random. 1 person in 1,000 felt different. They didn't know why. They didn't understand what was happening. Most were too scared to tell anyone. The world's governments were too busy with the alien threat to notice these scattered reports. Cities were evacuating. Military forces were mobilizing, though everyone knew it was pointless. Scientists worked around the clock trying to find any weakness in the alien technology. Religious leaders called for prayer. Some people rioted. Others just sat with their families, waiting for the end. Commander Zektar watched Earth's panic with satisfaction. "Look how they scramble," he told his bridge crew. "Some flee their cities. Others gather weapons that cannot hurt us. They pray to imaginary gods. This is why lesser species must be ruled by the strong." "Commander," Velnor said, checking his instruments. "We're detecting some unusual readings from the planet. The energy weapon seems to have caused unexpected mutations in some humans." "Mutations?" Zektar examined the data. "A few hundred humans showing cellular changes. Irrelevant. Even if they grew armor and claws, they couldn't stand against a single Vorthak warrior. Prepare the ground forces. When the 72 hours expire, we take the planet." Back on Earth, Lisa Johnson hadn't left the observatory. She was tracking the alien fleet, sending updates to the government every hour. But she had also noticed something else. The telescope's sensors were picking up strange energy readings from Earth itself. Not from technology, but from people. The readings were identical to the alien energy beam, but weaker, scattered, growing. She thought about calling it in, but decided against it. The government had enough to worry about. Besides, what difference could a few energy anomalies make against a fleet that could destroy the planet? 48 hours remained on the alien countdown. Earth held its breath, waiting for salvation that wouldn't come. They didn't know that salvation was already beginning, hidden in the DNA of random people around the world. The invasion hadn't just brought destruction. It had awakened something that had been sleeping in humanity for a very long time, something that should have been left alone. Paul Martinez hadn't slept in 36 hours. He sat in his apartment staring at the broken remains of his furniture. The coffee table was in pieces. The doorknob had been crushed into a metal ball. Even his toothbrush had snapped in half when he tried to use it. He was afraid to touch anything else. The news played on his television, showing riots in major cities. The alien countdown timer was displayed in the corner of the screen. 36 hours left. But Paul barely noticed. He was too focused on his hands, watching them shake. Not from fear, but from power he couldn't control. He decided to test it. Paul picked up a metal spoon from the kitchen. He squeezed gently. The spoon folded like paper. He squeezed harder. The metal turned to liquid between his fingers, dripping onto the floor. He grabbed a kitchen knife and pressed it against his palm. The blade shattered. His skin didn't even have a scratch. Across the world in Tokyo, Amy Chen was experiencing something different. She had locked herself in her apartment bathroom, sitting in the bathtub with her hands over her ears. It didn't help. She could hear everything. Every conversation in her building. Every heartbeat. Every breath. Every whisper for blocks around. But it wasn't just sound. When she closed her eyes, she could see through walls. She could see her neighbor making dinner 3 apartments away. She could see the family on the floor below, hugging each other and crying about the aliens. She could see the electromagnetic signals from every phone and computer around her like rivers of light flowing through the air. "Make it stop," she whispered. But her own voice sounded like thunder in her ears. At the CDC headquarters in Atlanta, Dr. Karen White was running her 5th test on the blood samples. Every result was the same, but she couldn't believe it. She called her colleague, Dr. Steve Adams, to look at the data again. "This is impossible," Steve said, adjusting his glasses. "These gene sequences weren't just dormant. They were locked, like someone put them in a vault and threw away the key. But the energy from that alien weapon, it's the exact frequency needed to unlock them." Karen nodded, pulling up a comparison on her computer. "Look at this. Normal human DNA versus the changed samples. These new sequences are perfect. Too perfect. Evolution doesn't work this way. Someone engineered these genes into humans. Someone wanted us to have these abilities, but only under specific circumstances. Like a fail-safe," Steve said quietly. "Or a weapon that only activates when needed." "We need to tell someone," Karen said. "Tell them what? That some humans are developing superpowers? They'll think we've lost our minds. Besides, look outside. The world is ending in 36 hours. Who's going to care about a few genetic anomalies?" But more people were beginning to notice. In New York, a police officer named Jake Coleman was trying to control a riot when someone threw a brick at his head. The brick exploded into dust before it touched him. A shimmering blue shield had appeared around his body for just a second. In Los Angeles, a young mother named Rita Sanchez was trapped in her car after an accident. Her baby was crying in the back seat. The door was crushed shut. Without thinking, she grabbed the door and pulled. The entire door came off, hinges and all. She stared at it in her hands, then dropped it and grabbed her baby, running away before anyone could ask questions. The reports started coming into emergency services. A man in Phoenix who could heal cuts with a touch. A woman in Seattle who could move objects with her mind. A teenager in Miami who could turn invisible. The operators thought people were going crazy from stress. They logged the calls but didn't take them seriously. Commander Zektar reviewed the reports from his spy drones with mild interest. "The mutations are spreading," Velnor reported. "We're now detecting approximately 3,000 humans with cellular changes." 3,000 out of 8 billion, Zektar said. "Statistically insignificant. Have they developed any abilities that could threaten us?" "Some show increased strength, enhanced senses, minor energy manipulation. Nothing beyond what we've seen in other species. A Vorthak child could defeat them. Then we proceed as planned. Begin positioning the ground forces. When the deadline expires, we take the major cities first." On Earth, General Baker was in a secure bunker with President Murphy and the Joint Chiefs. They were watching satellite feeds of the alien ships moving into lower orbit. "They're positioning for ground assault," Baker said. "We've identified landing zones near 20 major cities worldwide." "Our response?" Murphy asked, though he already knew the answer. "We'll fight with everything we have, Mr. President. It won't be enough, but we'll make them work for it." The phone rang. It was Dr. Lisa Johnson from the observatory. Murphy put her on speaker. "Mr. President, I'm detecting something strange. Those energy anomalies I mentioned before, they're growing stronger, and they're not random. They're coming from people." "What do you mean, from people?" Murphy asked. "I know how this sounds, but I've triple-checked the data. Hundreds, maybe. Thousands of humans are emitting energy signatures similar to the alien weapons. It started after their demonstration in Nevada. The energy wave from their weapon did something to us." General Baker leaned forward. "Are you saying humans are developing some kind of defense mechanism?" "I don't know what I'm saying," Lisa admitted. "But something is happening to our species, something unprecedented." Before Murphy could respond, another call came in. It was Dr. Karen White from the CDC. She had decided to report her findings after all. "Mr. President, I need to report something critical. We've discovered that the alien energy weapon has activated dormant genes in certain humans. These genes appear to be artificial, placed in our DNA deliberately. They're giving people abilities that shouldn't be possible." Murphy looked around the room at his advisors. They all had the same expression of disbelief and desperate hope. "How many people are affected?" Murphy asked. "We estimate 1 in every, few thousand so far, but the number is growing." "Mr. President, I know this sounds insane, but some humans are developing superhuman abilities. It's real, and it's happening right now. 24 hours remained on the countdown. Around the world, more people were discovering changes in themselves. Most were terrified. Some thought they were going crazy. A few began to experiment, to test their limits. Paul Martinez had gained enough control to leave his apartment. He walked through the chaos of Chicago's streets, careful not to touch anyone. He saw a car accident ahead. A vehicle flipped upside down with people trapped inside. Without thinking, he ran over and grabbed the car's frame. He lifted the 2-ton vehicle with one hand and set it upright. The crowd stared in shock as he tore the doors off to free the passengers. Amy Chen had learned to filter the sensory input, to focus on specific things instead of everything at once. She could hear the fear in people's voices throughout Tokyo, but she could also hear something else. Other people like her, scattered throughout the city, their bodies humming with the same strange energy. In London, a street fighter named Tommy Brooks discovered he could move faster than the eye could see. In Moscow, a scientist named Natasha Volkov found she could understand and speak any language instantly. In Cairo, an elderly professor named Ahmed Hassan realized he could see probability, watching possible futures branch out like a tree. They were scattered, confused, and unorganized. But they were growing in number and power with each passing hour. The alien weapon meant to demonstrate Earth's helplessness had instead started something unstoppable. Commander Zektar gave the final order to his forces. Prepare for deployment. In 24 hours, Earth belongs to the Vorthak Empire. He had no idea that Earth was preparing its own response, not with weapons or technology, but with evolution itself. Humanity was awakening to something that had been hidden in their genes for millennia, waiting for exactly this moment. The real battle for Earth was about to begin.